Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the crazy morning and the delay getting started today. Welcome to my insane life. Had a mix up on childcare and wasn't able to go live here until a little bit late. But we're here. Good morning, everybody. So first of all, congrats to all the Bitcoin hodlers out there for new all-time highs. This is the first time I've been able to go live since we made new all-time highs. And normally I try to go live as that price action happens, but again, life has been, I've been going nonstop 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. So welcome Alan back to the stream today. He's got some great insights to share with us, as well as some more travels around. Alan, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, very well, Brandon. Good evening from a slightly chillier Dalian than last week. So it's been a bit of an interesting week for sure in many ways. So I look forward to sharing that if we have time today. So, yeah.
Very good. Well, before we get rolling too terribly much, we'll wait for people to join us here. As usual, hold on. I got another fan still on. If I hear some background noise. There we go. As usual, Alan and I are not licensed financial advisors. So anything you hear here today, just our opinion, our observation about what we see in the markets. Of course, if you, as usual, take any trades or buy anything blindly based on things that we talked about today without doing your own research, you're going to end up losing all of your money on a big scam wick that liquidates you and end up living in a van down by the river. Now, with that said, of course, today, really the story of the day is the new all-time high in Bitcoin. We'll look at what price is doing and kind of our collective thoughts around different cryptos. I'm just going to share real fast just to get the ball rolling here. As you guys know, I've got a Litecoin trade on. I think this is looking pretty good for a potential bounce back. I'm not looking for the same high-end bounce that I think a lot of Litecoin truthers are. I'm trying to get to this 0.4 on this trend line myself. Trying to see if we can't push all the way up to here. But that's what I'm looking for on Litecoin trade. Litecoin's doing well, but there's a bunch of others. I saw Solana was making some big moves. Obviously, Ethereum is doing very well. And the other one, Elrond, I was looking this morning, Elrond was starting to really make a big bounce, but it's bounced right into this weekly resistance versus the BTC chart. This is the other one I've been watching real closely to see when it's time to add a little bit more to that position. But that Elrond USD chart's looking mighty good. Trying to retake this trend line. And then lastly, my last thought on this price action we've had here. What I do on these breakouts, so I had leverage positions on from the 65K weekly retest over here, the 60K weekly retest over here. That was my last leverage position. So what I do is from that point, once we break like a significant level of these all-time high, I'll draw a parabolic launch angle trend line. I do it right through there is what I did. And then what I do is I set my stop at the next support level below that. So right about here, we started consolidating here. I had set my stop right under here, right underneath the prior all-time high, hoping it would bounce off of there. And I got stopped out of leverage once again. But it's my opinion, and I'll turn it over to Alan next. It's my opinion that if you're going to play the leverage game, you have to maintain stops, and you have to maintain pretty tight stops, relatively speaking, and keep moving them because of things like this. And then this is Bitcoin Jack posted this out. My Binance feed wasn't showing this, but maybe I have the wrong feed. But this scam wick came all the way down to $8,000. And so the problem, of course, is even if you're very responsibly lightly leveraged and the exchange that you're on happens to have a cascade liquidation event like this, or I don't know what caused this on Binance per se, might have just been the wipe out of the order book. Hopefully people, I was told on Twitter that Binance uses an index for the pricing for leverage, so people weren't really affected on leverage, hopefully. But this is why I keep a stop loss on leverage, and I keep it kind of tight because once this run starts to happen, there's a lot of slippage as well. And so the risk that you run is that your order doesn't get filled and you end up getting liquidated on a massive spike like this, even if you're responsibly leveraged. So it is my opinion that while it hurts to continually be getting stopped out for small profit and not able to push the trade here lately because of these scam wicks, because of this and the low liquidity environment we're in, this is why I think if you're going to play the leverage game, you have to maintain a stop loss and a reasonable one at that. It can't be some way low stop loss, or you might just end up eating that too. But those are my initial thoughts today. But again, congratulations everybody, and I'm sorry if anybody hopefully nobody got liquidated on a silly move like this. That would be quite atrocious. But those are my opening thoughts, and I'm going to stop sharing and turn over to what Alan had to share today.
Yeah, you'll need to turn the sharing on, as always.
Oh, my goodness.
One of those mornings, brother.
Yeah, it's one of those mornings, guys. At least we're an all-time high on Bitcoin.
Yeah, we didn't crash the market last week, so I think we've killed that one.
Yeah, well, that's true. We know now because we're going live. We'll see. We got a couple weeks for Previn there. I guess last week, yeah. I'd look at what price action did last week, but it's pretty much been only up lately.
I think we've started a new up only series, which is definitely better than down only. Previous version.
Keith is saying on chat that it was Binance US. So okay, I have the main Binance feed on my chart. So Binance US got hit with that monster wick.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Binance here. Obviously, it's USDC pair, but there's no sign of any wicks here on this weekly chart. So hopefully you can see my complicated share.
Yep. We'll see your chart real good.
Excellent. So obviously since last week, I mean, what a week. I think we were still slogging around in this resistance, and then obviously we got up out of there, retested it, and we've hit an all-time high. So on time as per the CTM based case at the moment. And it's been interesting watching those models. Obviously everyone should be keeping an eye on those models and the work of Alan, AU and Ted and the others who all contribute to those models. I think things currently playing out pretty well. So as ever, and you've talked about it with trading leveraged or however you're working, just always be mindful of these crazy pullbacks in crypto, 30% plus any time. You just never know when it's coming. But very bullish. Lovely price action, really. I mean, we've come in, we've made this pattern, tested this, and then off we went. So obviously holding Bitcoin and happy with this. No leverage involved for me, but can you say good to see? And then obviously my other sort of slightly shorter term look at Bitcoin, if the chart, that one on the Kraken, we had the bit of the wick today. Nasty wick.
Kraken feed. The Kraken did wick down to what, 52K or so?
Yeah, it's come down sort of 53, 54 here. So not too bad. This is their main USD pair. Obviously, Heath pointed this out on Twitter, but
yeah.
Obviously, if you've got other arbitrage type opportunities because there's chaos going on, then this sort of thing happens. Obviously, this was when ETH hit its all-time high, just about. So whether there was some sell orders lurking and whatever there that's just skewed everything, I don't know. But it's just typical wicks all over the place. We can look at some other charts. There's some insane wicks on some of the smaller.
Is it mostly Kraken? What is a scam wick? Somebody says B-Man. That's interesting that somebody's name is B-Man.
Yeah, it's what you call it, really. I mean, these are liquidity events generally, but the trouble you have is all of these exchanges, all of these levels for the pricing across these exchanges. Every exchange has its own liquidity, its own order pool, order book. So you have a lot of arbitrage bots running that are moving the price to keep it the same. And once you get into an arbitrage opportunity, who knows what algorithm's running on these bots, how it's going to play the opportunity where one is well out of alignment with another. And of course, then you've got all the cross pairs against whatever is out of alignment with the market. So you start to see, and we see ETH spiked around on Kraken as well. You just start to see it will just spike loads of pairs all over the place in different ways, depending on how that price is leveled back up. And so you can pretty quickly descend into sort of chaos where it's not necessarily, maybe there was a big sell order hit one of the exchanges, but you just then end up with this cascade of mess that seems to just run, and it'll be random exchange by exchange based on what the arbitrage situation is and the depth of the order book. So you just never know. And we talked about this in CTM, haven't we? Some people will put orders around some of these.
Yeah, you can put some crazy low orders. So Walter's asking how 8K is possible. And to answer my answer on what is a scam wick, the reason I call this one scam wicks, basically when you have these exchanges really don't have the proper liquidity to support the trading a lot of times that they should have. And so you have your order book so what happens is you have people on both sides of an order book, right? You've got people that have bids in and you have asks in for sell side. So you can wipe out one side of the order book or the other, if you're like a bot that's purposely doing that for some reason. But it can be done just with very large orders, can wipe out the order book and cause the price to move a lot. And then when you have leverage on top of that, what happens is anybody who's got stop losses, obviously those get hit, and that creates more sell side pressure or buy side pressure, depending on which direction the move is happening. And then lastly, especially on the downside wicks can be huge because you have liquidation levels. So anybody who's in leverage on a potential exchange, once their liquidation hits a certain threshold, the liquidation value hits a certain threshold, then they get liquidated and they're forced to sell. So that's a lot more sell side pressure. So when you get an order book that gets wiped out on the bid side, there's no more bids left, nobody buying it left, and you got liquidations that have to happen. There's a cascade event that happens, and it causes this monster like storm within a single exchange that can cause these very huge wicks. Like, so Binance US clearly did not have enough liquidity, and a very large sell order hit that exchange, and it just wiped out the whole order book all the way down to $8,000. There wasn't enough in the order book to support that volume. So, like I said, hopefully nobody got hit with liquidations on that type of event as well. But that's why I call them scam wicks. It's ultimately because there just isn't enough underlying liquidity on that particular exchange, and it was vulnerable to some sort of very short-term momentary blip. But these momentary blips, the problem this presents in active crypto trading. Now, if you're just holding and you're being smart about it, I think everybody should have a base HODL bag. And if you're going to trade, you should trade with a smaller subset of your position for this very reason. But if you're taking leverage positions at all, you're vulnerable to these types of very low liquidity, issues, especially if you're on an exchange that doesn't have the proper liquidity. So like Coinbase was good. Most of the exchanges were good, but at any moment, any one of these exchanges could get a monster order, and that exchange could have a very large move on it. So just something to keep in mind. That's why I call them scam wicks, because they're momentary. They don't reflect the real price in the market, right? It is just a localized issue on an exchange or a cascade, or like Alan's talking about, sometimes across all exchanges. We've seen it a couple times now. There's just massive liquidations across all the exchanges, but it's really more evident when it's a single exchange that gets hit with a very large order or set of orders that causes it to go abnormally off the rest of the exchanges, and that's not reflective of the true price. So when you get a wick that is way far off, not reflective of the true price in the market, that's a scam wick in my book, right? And that's and unfortunately in crypto. Go ahead.
You can trade obviously derivatives that you talked about there being an index-based price on Binance for leverage, and obviously CFDs are that very sort of product. Obviously, perhaps outside the US, don't know what all the rules are, but obviously you can't trade them currently as a retail trader in the UK, for example, but you can elsewhere. And these are sort of the prices derived off a sort of basket of prices, if you like, across the crypto exchanges. So in those instances, it will help you. If you were, I don't know how DYDX, for example, stood up, sort of perpetuals trading the big Ethereum layer 2 exchange. But again, if they're using a more of a sort of derived price than purely their own order book, then it can protect against this if it's just one or two exchanges. But when the price came down, particularly of Ethereum and other smaller tokens, when we had the 56%, again, we had capitulation going on there, just wiping things out, albeit over a slightly longer period. So you just have to manage your risk all the time. Short-term trading is perhaps a better idea, as you say, very carefully risk managed than, sticking your house on something and then getting stopped on a very low liquidity, slipped stop loss that could have filled at 11,000 there.
I'll just share that the exchange that I use to do my leverage trading, I have at any moment between 10 and 20% of my main stash on that exchange, depending on how the seasonality where we're at. But I only maintain a small percentage of it, and that way only a small percentage of my total is exposed. So if something dramatically bad were to happen, it would be a devastating 10 or 20% loss, but it'd be a 10 or 20% loss, not a total wipeout, right? So that's just how, not financial advice. That's how I do it. I put a subset of my funds on whatever exchange I'm actively trading on, and the rest I keep safe.
Yep. So Bitcoin looking good. Obviously, in the last few days, certainly for me, happy days. Ethereum looking good. So if we go back to the weekly view, which was my very simple weekly Ethereum chart, we've broken out of that wedge that was there, sort of tested it, and came back and exploded upwards. Now, obviously, earlier on, and this was around the time of that chaos on Bitcoin, Ethereum came right in and tapped the all-time high, just at that point where there was all that chaos. So, bit too much of a coincidence, probably. So, probably a lot of sell orders up there. So,
yeah, I did not realize it perfectly hit the prior all-time high. What data feed was that on? Speaking of, I don't think I saw that.
This is on Kraken. Most of them, I think, are around this same 43.
Gemini, yeah, Gemini came in right to it. I'm just looking at my main feed for Ethereum, because I trade Ethereum on Gemini. It came almost right to it. Yep, almost perfect touch.
Yeah, so that was sort of watching that, and then I think some high-profile Ethereans were all-time high tweet, and then the thing just capitulated down to 4. It wasn't me. So but again, this has been amazingly bullish. Now, obviously, the thing we were looking at last time was this purple line, and look at that. I mean, that's come in. It's reversed right on the line. So there's clearly people watching this trend line. Obviously, I cloned it up there, but some sort of prior touches. So we've bounced. Now, obviously, you can put a line in here, and we haven't cleared that yet. So we're not out of this short-term downtrend right now, if you like, here. But we're still consolidating in this whole area, as we talked about last time, and we've had a very nice move there off the touch on the trend line. So Ethereum looking strong, and yeah, obviously has recovered relative to Bitcoin after those moves. So obviously happy with that as as some price action. Just waiting now to see if we consolidate here, or we just get on with taking out this all-time high. Obviously, I have a little bit of trend line resistance if it happens to be where we are. So, I mean, it literally went sort of straight up earlier. It was crazy, and then all hell broke loose, which is, I have to say, typically the way. So yeah, very obviously is a big ETH position. Happy with this. We still can look at this sort of general cup and handle type pattern here. Lots of people have looked at the inverse head and shoulders here, played out, took us back to where we were. We will see. Obviously, we've looked at before. There's a much bigger similar type of pattern on the Bitcoin chart. If we, ETH BTC, if we did come back up here, we shall see. So,
Oh, sorry. That's what I wanted to see your ETH BTC chart here. So yeah, you've got that. You came in right to the bottom channel you had there and bounced off. I've been watching this real closely because I am really close to finally adding some more back to my ETH position. I'll share as I've been analyzing things. I think so. I'm going to play Litecoin probably through mid-December, and then that'll be my main trade. But I really want to be heavy Ethereum and Elrond coming into 2022 myself.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. For me, we'll see how this bull market plays out now. Obviously, the base case is set, the CTM base case, which I'm watching. There's obviously other versions of other people's base cases, which I keep an eye on, different models, different patterns, different ideas. Obviously, it would be lovely if the CTM base case plays out because it's extremely bullish over the very near term. But we will see. Predictive models are there. This was on Twitter the other day. They're there. They're correct until they're not, and then they have to evolve. So we will see. Bitcoin dominance we touched on previously. Now you see if this will load.
So while that loads, I just had a question about Umbrella, and that's one that I had some active trades on, but I got stopped out. I'll just share with you on that. So on Umbrella, yeah, we took that trade as we broke 34 cents USDT, 35 cents. Coming back into that test, I think is where I entered, and then I entered some on the way up. I didn't take profit at 60 when it hit 65 because I was looking at 72 cents for my take profit target. And so since then, I put a stop loss under it in the mid 50s somewhere. I can't remember where I put it, maybe right at 50 cents. And so I've been stopped out. So ultimately, I just traded Umbrella from roughly 35 cents to 50 cents, and I've been out since 50 cents. Now, my opinion on it, to answer your question there, I know that's one that we keep getting asked about. It's a good project, I think, but it's just a matter of timing of when it gets the hype that it needs to really move. And it's consolidating now, so I'll keep an eye on it. Should we get another touch of 35 or so, would be probably a good spot to add because we did kind of break out of that level. I'm just looking at it now, though. Really, it's consolidating kind of this pennant here. I'll have to pull up that chart later, but let's get back to Alan's. I'll get this one ready. I want to share some altcoin charts just to queue up some altcoin things here when Alan's done sharing, and this will be one of them I'll have queued up.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of just putting some cloned lines on Bitcoin dominance just to have a look here at at where we are. So we've just come up into some resistance here at the moment. So if we get a reversal and run down here, then it would continue the trend.
Yeah, so you've got that as a down. So
yeah, so that's not the flipped one. That's the normal downtrend Bitcoin dominance.
Yeah, let me look at mine. See, my view. Yeah, so I've got the same well, you've got a trend line. I've got weekly resistance at 47. So that's exactly we barely got above 47, and then we came down right below it. So that's what my chart shows. I don't have my downtrend. My main downtrend line is a little bit higher than yours.
Yeah, so I mean, I've just taken this off the top of this move here down to the wick here, and then I just claimed it and it all seems to line up. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on it now. I thought it'd be interesting to see. So the last time we looked at it, let's see my other.
I'm over here working on my. So whenever I go live with Alan, I start copying all his stuff. So I'm shamelessly copying your downtrend trend line.
Little bit of work. So and just to whiz through some of the other things we tend to look at. Obviously, dollar still hasn't made it back above this line. In fact, it's sort of rejected off it a little bit. So so that's interesting at the moment.
Yeah, it's just riding that resistance on the bottom side of that resistance. It's interesting. I keep an eye on that too, and it's just I don't have a good read on what it's going to do next. I don't know if anybody does, honestly.
No, I mean it's
Fiat. The problem is all these fiat currencies. They're all just it's like it's just a matter of are we risk on or risk off is what it boils down to.
War going on, and it's always just because is the dollar. Yes, it's being printed to death almost, but then other things are being printed more, so DXY maybe holds up. So it's
right.
Crazy. Obviously, we've had a look at the 10-year before. It's just attempting to get out past this line I put on. So we go back forever with this data. I think I looked at this on monthly actually when I drew this line. Yeah, I was just trying to find the line just to see where it was. So, but it's obviously been up and down before. It's difficult. You can put this line in so many places. I was looking at it. So we'll see what happens with this, but obviously on the monthly view, not a lot yet. So obviously, just quickly to cover the things we looked at. Obviously, I'll cover some Tesla news in a bit, but crazy Tesla chart.
Killing it. My goodness.
Monthly. Yeah, monthly we're above the high, and Tesla's just crushed earnings. I don't know what trading views do with these trend lines, Lord only knows. But yeah, Tesla's had amazing earnings. We'll come back to the news if we have time. So but yeah, we're just about to test the high, I think, and we'll see where it goes. Nasdaq also obviously was watching this weekly with this support and this touch of this line. Oh, it was just resumed straight back off it, and we'll see if we're a week or so away from another all-time high. Trying to pick a top on this, as we've talked about, it's just up. So we wait and see. There's no sign of tapering or the things that would potentially bring this down as it did before. Yeah. S&P, well, S&P is back at the high, so just keep printing money and up it goes. So that's kind of, yeah, I mean, that's my quick whiz through the charts. Should we whiz through some of the initial news?
Go for it. Anybody have any other questions? Somebody asked us to look at DOT. Do you have a DOT chart? We didn't look at that, did we?
I do, yeah. I've got DOT on here because I hold some DOT. So DOT's been, I think that's been doing well. Yeah. So we looked at this sort of last time. I think this was drawn on a daily sort of price feed. So yeah, we got a bit of a wedge. We broke out. We've then cleared this trend line coming down from the high, and we looked at it last time into resistance. I remember a week ago, and it's struggling up through these 2 weekly resistance to sort of sat at the next one. But again, looking like if it gets up here, then goodbye. It's just been amplified on some of what Ethereum's been doing, really.
Yeah, I have two of my larger, other speculative bags are DOT and Link, and DOT's been way outperforming Link here recently.
Yeah, I mean, I've kept 20% of my DOT position on because it just seems to keep. But I mean, the fundamentals are nowhere compared to Ethereum. But as we've talked about before, does that even matter at times in crypto? just goes up. So there we go. I mean, Link we've talked about before. I've got this wedge here looking at it. We've got out of this consolidation, but we're still not out of this one. So obviously would move with the market, I guess. All we can say, really. DeFi similar. We had this pattern. We've come out, retested, and resumed up. Really in line with Ethereum. So, so again, not highs though here. Long way off at the moment. Obviously, the TVLs in DeFi are pretty strong, but obviously that's because it's measured in dollars, and ETH and Bitcoin are so high. So it looks like there's a lot of value locked, etc. But there's probably not any more tokens been put into the DeFi protocols particularly. It's just the values because it's measured in dollars is going up.
So Gene just asked a question about DOT auctions. So the Paraslot chain auctions. Yes, I've been trying to keep track of. The two ecosystems I'm really trying to keep track of new projects launching on are Polkadot and Cardano, of course. With those two, because those are more established names, I think bigger projects that launch on them are going to get a lot of hype. It's just a matter of timing that. So I'm wondering, I'm still myself debating whether I really want to wait for 2022 in the bear market to see who's launching and who's getting adoption on those to add some of those in the bear market for the next, bull market phase, or it depends on if we get a lengthening cycle, kind of Michael's block-based thesis, and we get the first quarter, Bitcoin tops actually toward the end of the first quarter, then I think that would be a really good time then to look at parachain slot, projects that were awarded parachain slot, or projects launching on Cardano, or maybe even by that point Elrond or some of these other bigger names, Avalanche, those type of projects that are launching on those. That it may be a good time to look at trading those more short term in the first quarter if we do get a lengthening bull cycle. But if we have a traditional end bull cycle in December, I don't know. I think it's gonna be really hard to capture the moves on those. It's just gonna be so short lived. So I'm thinking I'll probably just play the mid caps and large caps, and then wait for those small caps in the bear market myself. So I'm really watching closely to see how this cycle plays out, the rest of it, and that's really going to inform whether I really start talking about and looking a lot more at Polkadot and Cardano projects that are upcoming, or if I stay with the main chains themselves, just with Ethereum and Matic and Cardano and so forth. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Alan. Any thoughts on for you? Have you been paying any attention to the projects being launched on Polkadot?
Not particularly, no. Recently, my inbox is full of Ethereum news, so it's pretty full at the moment. So got some volatility in the market today for sure going on here. So Bitcoin giving that former all-time high a proper test. So, no, I mean, I'm not, apart from where I was positioned already, a little bit of, you got a bit of Polkadot, it's probably the bigger position, but still a very small percentage of my portfolio now, and a little bit of some DeFi and Link and bits and bobs, but no, I just let those run if we get the thesis plays out and we get this blow off top quickly now. We will see. So usual Ethereum, look at the week, still burning over 5 ETH, nearly 6. We are seeing OpenSea's kind of getting closer to ETH transfers. And I think if you look at the last day or so, actually ETH transfers is now the biggest fee payer. So whether there's more activity on layer 2 going on here, I don't know. What's going on with NFTs, don't watch it that closely, but still a lot of ETH burn continuing, and we're all time nearly 600,000 ETH. So we're probably at 0.5% of all the ETH ever issued, burned already, 77 days. So bullish for the reasons we've talked about. So
yeah, it's going to have a big. I mean, this is kind of why I'm less focused on the smaller, like small caps being launched on Polkadot and Cardano and others, because there's just so much opportunity with what's going on macro wise with Ethereum. I think that's where there's plenty of opportunity there. So that's been kind of my focus.
Could pump anywhere, and you've got this sort of supply shock. It just don't really know the relative performance of things. I'm still bullish Ethereum above Bitcoin, certainly. So we will see. Obviously, there's always some news. Obviously, there was a news this week that Facebook's Novi wallet is now going live, and I think this is a sort of initial phase for Facebook, but they're using an ERC20 stablecoin. So the bankless guy's obviously quite happy with that. But this just follows what we've seen. We've had TikTok, we've had Visa, we've got obviously So Rare continues to build with the fantasy football, etc. These are huge things happening on layer 2 on Ethereum, and this is where I see, you can be a sort of VC play on some of these other projects on these other chains because they're really early with nothing happening. The risk for all of these other layer 1s is that you can, there's so many flavors of layer 2 now on Ethereum where you're going to build, and we are seeing the serious adoption coming now. So I think an interesting 6 months, 12 months now on Ethereum to see how far this all takes off. There are so many different layer 2s, for another day, perhaps have a little bit more of a look at that, but there's so many different technologies now and different types of layer 2 you can build on. Obviously, staying within the Ethereum ecosystem, you can pretty much profile whatever type of application, from the more real time to things with a little more security heavy, etc. And you can find a suitable layer 2 to build on. And the interaction between the layer 2s is improving all the time. So yeah, I mean, more bullish news. Now, I thought we'd just briefly, without getting stuck into all the weeds of this, because it's obviously, I shared this on Twitter as well in response to I think one of Jordan's tweets on Ethereum. There's a lot of talk about ETH2 again and the merge. Now, potentially, the merge is likely to be after this bull market and the blow off top.
Right.
So it could be that the merge has no effect on, especially if we get December, it's going to have no effect at all. In fact, if we get probably January, February, again, too early. But obviously there was some talk about, is he going to merge? As there was talk, the dates have gone back, etc. From the minutes of a call with the ETH core developers. Now, so I had a good look through that and sort of way to interpret it, and it looked like there's a difficulty bomb in the proof of work for Ethereum, and they're pushing that back to try and make sure that this doesn't kick in whilst they are waiting to get the merge complete for the move to proof of stake. So they've sort of pushed that back and agreed to push it back to sort of June time, and they can push it back again, the minute said, if they need to. And then there was a second piece in the news about, well, the developers have said ideally there would be a 4-month period from the tech being ready to do more testing. But there isn't clarity at the moment on quite what they meant by that, because obviously some of the tech's sort of ready now and some isn't. There's a lot of different clients, different implementations, etc. with ETH2. So I don't think it said the merge has gone back. It certainly wasn't. I think when you read it, it wasn't trying to say that. So I would still say keep an eye on it for end of Q1, early Q2, and then go from there. The big news for the week was this update after the sort of this Amphora interop event in Greece. Now, basically what this was some of the Ethereum core developers got together to work on the switch, so like known as the merge, and all the milestones that were achieved. So this was quite a big deal for the core development, the core developers and the community around them, because it showed that the merge was possible, and that all of the various clients and bits and pieces that make up Ethereum, were interacting with each other successfully. So they sort of built a dev net and then effectively merged it. And you can find this on my Twitter out there and read through it. But see, people got together in a room and sort of slightly curious for the way Ethereum is managed, but they've managed to get some people together, and you can see some of the footage of lots of technical things happening. If you look at the milestone tracker here, you can see there's green ticks now across the board, all the different versions of clients and the different consensus and execution parts of Ethereum. So the headline was that it worked, and obviously things were ironed out during the time they spent together, but they managed to build this test net and then merge things together and have activity between all the different clients, which is a big deal, really. It sort of proves that this is a long way. This before you could see had M1s and some M2s, I think, on this sort of project plan, if you like, this milestone tracker. They've made a huge amount of progress. It looks to me still, that's the headline I put on Twitter, is the merge will happen. It's only a case of when now. When is everyone happy enough? Because it's fine, all these clients and all these other things here all being tested. See, there's a vast ecosystem in Ethereum, and there's got to be enough buy-in from all of the main projects that generate all of the transactions. On layer one, it must be said, obviously if the layer two roll-ups are tested, then there'll be no change to applications running on layer two. But I would say generally very positive news for Ethereum and ETH2 now. See, people can take it as a negative that maybe the timeline goes back, but that's wouldn't surprise me if things slipped a bit. But right now, still looking at the same dates I've said before, and then go from there. So update. I mean, I don't know how much you've looked at this, Brandon. Obviously, it's effectively bringing together the the proof of the EVM from proof of work and merging it in with the beacon chain proof of stakes. You get executable beacon chain. And
Yeah,
then
you
got
have
the
to have
consensus clients and execution clients.
Yeah, I've studied the roadmap. The newest news, I skimmed through it. I came to the same conclusion you did, that people were misreading like a lot of it was no surprise to me that they pushed back the date, because there's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of things to figure out, and it's with the layer 2 ecosystem developing the way it is, and that was a core component of Ethereum's roadmap anyway, and their plan anyway. So I think they're less concerned about getting ETH 2.0 rolled out immediately, because people are starting to move to the layer 2, and that development's going well. But then they want to get this right. As far as the mechanics of it, technically speaking, Ethereum, the beacon chain is up and running. So it's kind of, technically speaking, Ethereum is running proof of stake for that section of it. It's just the smart contract execution cannot happen until the merge. And so smart contracts, we can't write to the chain that has the ability to perform smart contracts until the merge happens, because that's still all in the proof of work.
That is absolutely. So that's what's still to do. And there's another point, obviously, to make, because there's been some questions about what about obviously the rewards for ETH2 that are stacking up within beacon chain. Will there be a sell the news, la-di-da? Well, what's been said is that those are released in a later update. So those funds, so when the merge takes place, there will not be everybody having access to this ETH2 that they can then sell. Now, I've read that from different people on Twitter, haven't looked into it in detail, but assuming that's the case, it sort of makes sense that there'll be some controlled process. So you don't suddenly have, 2 years worth of ETH rewards for staking all to be sold at one moment in time. So I'll have a little bit more of a look at that to see exactly how that's going to play out. But yeah, obviously was another question, and obviously Jordan asked that question as well. So
I think the really important, A, it's going to happen, and B, it's not as critical as people think, just because, again, the layer 2 ecosystem was a core part of the plan the whole time. And frankly, we talked about this before in a prior live stream together. Frankly, I believe that Ethereum could stay proof of work if they wanted to, and just focus entirely on the layer 2 ecosystem. And with that mindset, it would probably scale just fine. But obviously, scaling the layer 1 as well is that much more advantageous. So they're gonna do it. It's just a matter. They're not in any rush to make it happen, because they have a working layer 2 ecosystem. And so there's no point in rushing and getting something wrong. It's more important to them to take their time and get it right, which is, I appreciate. Obviously, I'm a fan of Cardano, which is taking its time to get things right and it's going to be slower all around being brought to all applications being brought to use in the real world because of that. But when things go live, it's going to work. That's the main thing.
Absolutely. So those are the key things. I mean, it's just more good news there. Ethereum good news and more usage. It's usage across the board. What Ethereum is all about, which we talked about heavily last time. So obviously other news within the last week. Obviously, we've just seen Tesla earnings, just because we talk Tesla every week. So Tesla's beat here, obviously Gali, who's a big sort of Tesla sort of YouTuber. So again, fantastic numbers from Tesla, bigger beat than expected. 2 billion operating income, 3 billion operating cash flow, 13 billion revenue, so and 27% gross margin, which for primarily automaker is very, very high. Looked at this operating margin, full operating margin graph up.
That's amazing right there. That's a really important component of the business.
There's a huge component shortage and all kinds of other drama at the moment, and vertical integration is winning for Tesla. I haven't included their China sales, but their China sales have been amazing and just eating everybody else's lunch. So as I put on Twitter, other automakers in big trouble, who don't have a proper EV strategy. And this is the quarterly revenue since inception chart, and there's another quarter to go yet this year. So this thing's going over here into the what's happening. So yeah, that's what I expected to happen. And you think next year you've got Texas, you've got Berlin, you've got more Shanghai. I'll be going way off the side of the screen, like a Bitcoin chart.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I did not expect Tesla to maintain that pace. I thought there would be more challenges along the way, but man, Elon proved me wrong. Of course, I don't know. I said we probably should. As soon as I saw them land 2 rockets side by side, I should just quit doubting all things.
I think there is a point, isn't there, with all the FUD out there on Tesla and Elon? It's like, what's the guy got to do for? They do all this extraordinary engineering, and there's still this FUD everywhere. It's just like, oh well.
Zach, did Shiba Inu get listed? Whatever it's Shib, whatever I'll call it, Shib. Shiba Inu get listed on Robinhood? Somebody's asked that question. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I don't. Obviously, I see the news. People come through talking about Shib, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if that was a question meant to be. I know it's going to be listed on, so if you can get in front of it, I know people are excited. It's going to be listed. It's going to go up 1,000x or something crazy. I don't know. It's not. Is it tradable on? Let me look at one thing real fast. Shib, is it tradable on KuCoin? Because if it's not tradable on KuCoin, I really don't care. I think it's only on Binance. And I can't use Binance for where I'm at right now. Oh yeah, Shib is on KuCoin. So I need to keep an eye on it for a trade because I'll trade it if it breaks out.
So we're still getting, just whilst we're live, obviously we're still getting Bitcoin retesting going on.
Yeah, I've been watching that the whole time you were talking. Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on it. Yeah, so we'll see. My gut tells me. Here's what my gut tells me. I hate to ruin everybody's party here. My gut tells me we've moved up. What is this? From September 21st to today. I'm gonna measure it for you real fast while you watch that chart. We're up 70% in 30 days, roughly. So this is also why I've been keeping a tight stop loss under things. I expect that this cycle is not going to peak late December. I expect it's going to peak actually early next year. And so I've been kind of waiting for the first big dip in October to really to be more aggressive on taking trades coming out of that, bouncing out of that. And we just not had a dip that's more, we've only had these little mini 5% pullbacks. and I've taken trades off of those, right, as they come into support. It's a worthwhile risk reward to take a reasonable trade, but I'm not going like, all in leverage or anything crazy. So my gut tells me that just given how 2021 has gone, you see all the fake, breakouts. Every time it breaks out, the only time it broke out, so we've had basically December of last year when it broke the prior all-time high, it took off, consolidated, and took off again. Then you had the sell-off in January after a monster move. And then after it broke out on the Elon news, that next break up to new all-time high, it didn't quite test the prior all-time high, and then it took off again. And then from that point on, we had two breakouts that were, completely retested and went below the prior all-time high, then a fake and a rolling, then that formed a rolling top.
Here we come. Down we come.
My opinion.
Real time crashing the market.
My opinion is that we are going to get a big shakeout in October because we've gone up from October 1st to today. It's been a low volume. It's one other thing to keep in mind about this. I know there's the models have been tracking really close, and they may continue to do so, which would be really cool. But I know for a fact, what I know for a fact is the market is going to throw a curveball. The models, early 2021 started out much hotter than anybody thought. Nobody that had a model, my model, anybody's model, was accurate. It was way above, way off the charts above. And so we all thought maybe the asset inflation QE was driving this insane start to the bull market, but then it rolled over. Okay, and then we had a prolonged summer low, and then we've had a really strong, very sharp recovery. The problem is this entire recovery has been fueled mostly by leverage and has been very low volume. So it is the situation is very rife for a very wicked shakeout. And what I don't know, what I kind of thought, the reason I took the trades I did is it looked like it was headed for a breakout of the all-time high, and it was definitely going to go for it. So I took that retest of 60K on that bounce close to the trend line. And then obviously I just got stopped out a little bit ago at just below the prior all-time high. But my thesis was we could go as high as this mid 70s, say, and then roll over and get that 30% shakeout. But I do think it's going to be healthy for us to get a good 10, 15, 20% shakeout, clear out a lot of leverage before we continue. But my gut has been telling me this whole time, the first really big dip in October is the opportunity to buy. And then we'll have a nice run, then probably another 30% correction in November, maybe, and we'll see. But my gut's been telling me we were headed for a big correction in October before October was done with. That's just been my gut feeling. But we'll see. Right at this point, we haven't even taken out that scam Wick doesn't count. We haven't taken out the prime trend line, but I've got you've got the same prime trend line. If we get a bounce off of that, yep, and you've got support. So what is that? Your daily levels? Let me go to my daily levels. Yeah, I've got a daily level from way back in April, which is at 63,578. But exactly, so that used to be a weekly level at 61,562. That is now right above it. There's a daily close at 61,700. That very well may be the level that the market is gunning for to ping off of that. Other than a scam wick, maybe if you flip to another feed that doesn't have that scam wick on there to see it. But it's definitely gunning for wiping out. This is probably a leverage wipeout. The problem is, given how 2021 has gone, every time if you get a break of the all-time high and then you get below it shortly thereafter, that's bad news bears, because we've seen it. We've seen this now multiple times.
Go back to Ethereum's couple of attempts here. I mean, obviously the first time we had this, obviously with Bitcoin capitulation, but we came back out and then we had a smaller capitulation when we ventured back here again. Obviously this time we've cleared it up to the all-time high, but we'll see. It's
this is a 5% pullback right now. I mean, that might be enough to clear out some leverage, to be honest with you. We had a 6% pullback. Remember that other one? We had that pullback at 63,000 down to 58,000. That was a 6%. So we've had some small little corrections along the way here. I think it's really rife for about a 15%, maybe up to a 20%, and then a resumption, clear out some leverage. That's let's see where 20% takes us. I think a 30% is not likely. A 20%, yeah. So our I think we both have a prime trend line cutting through some like very long-term price action from the. If you draw a trend line from the January peak through the April low and then the September early September peak, that trend line is about 17% off of this price here. So that's an area I could definitely see us making it as. I don't know that we'd make it down there though. I'm looking at all this support we have right on 58K. I just don't know that that breaks. That's,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, as you said, I mean, all these corrections are leverage and,
yeah.
you know, how many, you know, who's selling?
60K is 10% down. So we've got a really, so the April weekly close high, the prior weekly close high, and then the month Marchly close were 59.9, basically 60,000 and 58.8. That's the level I would be watching as like the worst case, honestly, in my opinion. I'm looking at this. The May or March monthly close was 58.8. We took that out. That would be the level I'd be watching. That's 12% off. That would be almost exactly par for the course for a shakeout of leverage right now. Yeah, that level right there. That to me, given that we've come back below, and this now probably constitutes a rejection of the all-time high. Yesterday's daily wick. That's the other thing. We took out yesterday's daily, so we've yeah. So the yesterday's daily low was 63.5. And it looks like we've taken that out here just now. So having taken that out, that means that we're in for a bigger retrace. So your line there at 15, right at 60,000 is a good guess as any.
That's the weekly. Yeah, I mean, these are weeklies on here plus this.
But that monthly level, that's the one I would consider that a Godzilla support. So that's definitely our prime trend line. I think is probably reasonable to take a stab at a catching the falling knife because pretty fast where you're wrong. If you like, I've got my prime trend line right now comes in at about 62.3. You're wrong below the weekly below it at 61.6. So taking a stab at a 62.3 entry with a stop just below that 61.6 weekly is to me maybe a reasonable play given where we're at. But
weekly 60,000, basically 59967 that I've just got in here and the daily there. So
I think the weekly. Let me go back
if we lost all this, we'd come down a bit. But
no. The weekly close, yeah. So it's not a Heath level. The 61.5 really isn't it's just the last weekly close. That was the prior weekly high close.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that's just the close and open of this past week. So yeah, I think your March weekly of 59 right at 60,000. I would consider the Godzilla level to be that May support that May.
Yeah, close. I've got a monthly in there that I haven't got on here. It's got 58.
Yeah. So. That's my I will definitely take a stab at buying there, and if we don't get a good bounce off of that, then we'll just continue to watch. That's the risk reward is at 58 to 60K in my opinion. For anybody listening still with us right now live, to me the risk reward starts at 58.8. Between 58.8 and 60,000, you get some risk reward in taking a stab. But until then, because we've taken out the yesterday's low, we're headed for a bigger retrace than what we're looking at right now. And what tipped you off? I'm gonna flip to my chart here real fast. I really want to make sure people understand this because this is we didn't do this in springtime, and I want to make sure everybody is aware that this needs to be done moving forward. I said this in the springtime, and I said I wouldn't violate this rule moving forward. When we get a breakout of a prior all-time high, like this is a big breakout, and it just blasted right through there, I will always find a way to draw a launch angle trend line. And this is my warning symbol to get out, right? So when we started coming into that, either we were going to bounce off of that or I was getting stopped out. That's why I put my stop right there. Or yeah, right about there. I put it, far enough down below that the all-time high should have been able to catch it on a bounce. But we came into that launch angle trend line and we got rejected by it. So that was kind of giving me some gut feeling that we were going to head lower. But this is this is what happened. Go back over here. This is what would have kept us safe in all these situations. When you break the prior all-time high, let me just go to a 4-hour and try to go back in time and just kind of show you what I'm talking about. So here, this level, same thing, right? If you would have drawn, this would have kept you safe. If you would have drawn this just like that, on a breakout of this, you find your launch angle, you lose that launch angle, you know you need to get out, right? Or especially when you trade below the prior swing high, like right here, just trading below that swing high, that would have been, this is an example of using that strategy to get out safely, right? So when you drop below that, retest it. You need to at least leverage, right? This is not, if you're a spot hodler, you can ignore all, this is a bunch of noise for us idiots who are out here trying to leverage trade and the stress of that. Over here, same exact thing. When you broke this prior all-time high, you got your nice launch angle trend line. This one worked out well for us. I did the same exact thing here, launch angle trend line. And this was my biggest, I took a leverage trade, I think the 50-day. This was my biggest trade of the year. This is my biggest single win of the year. I actually opened leverage on this bounce off of here. So I watched this downtrend. I took this bounce off of here. I think over here is actually where I took my leverage entry. That was my leverage, my first leverage entry of the whole bull market, because I didn't have a good entry before that. It took off too fast. I never got one. And I rode it all the way to right there when that launch angle trend line broke. But over here, same exact pattern, right? You broke this prior all-time high. I'm just going to move this line right here so you can see it, right? And you have this parabolic uptrend, this breakout uptrend. When that breaks, then you know you're looking at some potential downside. Same exact thing over here. If you'd have followed this rule every time, you'd have stayed safe. So you have this, the prior all-time high right there. When you break above it, if you come back down below it, just like this is your warning right here. This is your warning sign that, hey, you got below it. Draw your launch angle trend line through there. And if you lose that, then you know you're headed, it's bad news bears, right? Potentially. Now, sometimes it's a fake. Sometimes it just bounces right back up. But typically, the market's going to give you some structure. So an example of it bouncing right back up is, maybe like this right here. This is a big example, but the market's going to give you some structure to work with. That on this bounce out of here, you could probably find yourself a nice breakout retest resumption through somewhere in here. I'm certain of it. But this is what keeps me safe on leverage. This is exactly, just see that pattern, see that pattern, see that pattern. This is exactly what I just did. Exactly that. Now we've got this other kind of prime trend line here. This is going to give us some support, which I don't think we had quite the same. This is about like that prime trend line, right? So here's an example, right? So this is the breakout trend line maybe, or over here, something like that. But you see, like, so this is that broader prime trend line, and then you're going to have a more parabolic, breakout trend line. Maybe like this would have been your initial breakout trend line, but a break to the downside there would be kind of your warning that you're starting to weaken, your momentum is starting to weaken, you're starting to roll over. So that's the rule. That's how I do it. And that's why I moved my stop aggressively up here, right underneath the prior all-time high. Once we started coming back down, curling over, this is the rule that I follow every time. Now, again, we've got market structure to work with. So we're going to be putting in this little bit of a pattern here. And a break to the upside of either that or maybe this. I don't know. This is really going to give us much to work with, honestly. I have to go all the way down. At this point, I'd have to go to the 1 hour to see the structure. Yeah. So you see some structure being put in here. This on the 1 hour, very short time frame. You had a high, then you took out, you created a low. You didn't take out a lower low just yet. Then you made a lower high, a low. That low is okay. That didn't take out these lows over here. It's still okay, technically speaking. Then we got a bounce, but then we put in a higher high, and now we put in a lower low. And so that's a recipe for further downside, likely. Now, it's not certain, but it's probable that, again, we have a little more downside ahead of us, whether that's simply this prime trend line here or, I don't think we're going to hold. I mean, it could. It's Bitcoin. I don't know. But the probability is, because this wick right here took out this price action over here, probability is we're going to go lower. So that's just my quick read on this initial sell-off here. But given all the false breakouts of 2021, I think it's really important that we cover that. And just now, this is a very short time frame, so I would never be trading. When y'all see me flip to the 1 hour chart, I'm simply just looking for structure and trend lines. I'm just really trying to dial in my trend lines real carefully and look at market structure. I trade on the 4 hour if it's trending, or the 12 hour in consolidation. So at this point, because we've also taken out this low, my next entry won't come until we retake a 12-hour candle. So, you know, the next entry won't come until at this point, if we take out this price, then I might be back in, right? Because that's a retest resumption at that point. But given that this low got taken out here, I'd be very hesitant until we take out, you know, really this high. But those are my thoughts.
Nice trading lesson for everybody, and looking at momentum fundamentally in these breakouts. Nice momentum trade and looking for exhaustion.
Yeah.
Get the heck out of there.
Yeah, we're up. I mean, just keep in mind is the whole.
It's a big old move. Yeah.
I know we're super bullish and people are looking at 400K by the end of the year, and they very well could be right. I'm not going to say they're not right, but you know, given how 2021 has gone and all the rolling tops and all the machinations, I mean, this was clearly a Wyckoff pattern here, and this was clearly a Wyckoff accumulation here. So the market is being manipulated. We have to accept that also, right? We have to accept the market is also being manipulated, and we're up 65% in 30 days. So while I don't think this is the top by any means, I'm super cautious at this point. And the next big dip, like I would love to see a 10 or 15% dip and a bounce out of that. That would give me a lot of confidence to be more aggressive with my trading, which when I say more aggressive, what that means is I take the same entries. I give my risk management more room. Like right now, you saw what I did is I was super aggressive with my risk management because again, we've moved almost 70% in 30 days. So I don't have the luxury of giving these trades a lot of room to run because they can turn around in a quick moment. But if we get this 15%, 12% shakeout to this monthly close here, and then we see some bounce off of that, right? And we get maybe a re-entry signal over here somewhere, then I can give those trades more room to run. I'll give them more space because we've had a nice correction. And now we're, you know, back in you know, that correction I've been looking for will have taken place, and I'll feel better about buying the dip, and I can give it more room. All right, so that was
There we go. So
I'm gonna now
real time today. Real time corrections going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Alan. If there's any of the news or any of the thoughts you wanted to wrap on, otherwise. Do you have anything else you wanted to share before we wrap?
Well, we could just quickly have a little bit of news.
All right.
That's okay. I mean, I think you're probably
We'll wrap some news. Let's give it, you know, a few minutes of news, and then we'll wrap up. Perfect.
Sure. So I was just going to talk about a sort of interesting week in other things. We talked about China last week. Obviously covered some news. So had an interesting weekend last week. So some pictures that people may have seen on Twitter if they're the follower. So we took a trip to Dandong, which is in the same province here. It's about 2 hours high speed, just over 2 hours high speed train from Dalian. So this is a picture up on top of a hill there in the park, and we're looking over towards the very mysterious, reclusive North Korea here. So the red building here in front of us is on the North Korean side of the Yalu River. We can catch a glimpse of the Friendship Bridge here, which bridges China to North Korea. So quite extraordinary, really. You can see the bits of the city here, but obviously no way to go and visit over there. And just look, you can put your 1 yuan in a telescope and have a look, see what you can see. Extraordinary. Obviously, this is the rail bridge across. So obviously, sometimes see the.
What was the name of that city that you can see from there? I'm looking it up right now.
North Korea. I tried to pronounce it and got it wrong.
Okay, so
if you look at Dandong, which is the Chinese city, and you'll see across the other side. So
Dandong, yeah. So my Texas accent would be Dandong. So that's the sound. So I'm looking at the map right now. I'm just trying to follow along here. Look at the map.
Yeah. So we're just across it. So this is obviously historically the rail bridge to North Korea from China. And there was trade flowing here until obviously some of the changes of leadership, whatever, in North Korea were not quite so friendly with China. And yeah, very reclusive place. So we saw nothing across this bridge. I think there was an engineer looking, just checking the tracks, whatever, but there was no traffic backwards or forwards whilst we were there. This is called the Sino-Korean Friendship Bridge in English. All slightly surreal there. I FaceTimed a friend in the UK, also stood on the water and said, "You want to guess what's behind me?" No clue. It was North Korea. Very, very strange. And
It's super fascinating, though. That would be really cool
I mean,
visit. That would be really neat.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. There's a second bridge in behind this one, which you sort of can't really see here, called the Broken Bridge, which was actually destroyed by US bombing in the Korean War, and they've left it broken as a sort of relic of the war. We walked right down to the end. You could get as close to North Korea as I could get, really. See just the two supports across. Extraordinary history. There's a museum we went to in Bandung as well, covering all the full history of the Korean War. Fascinating. Just looking at the two sides of the river, so this is the sort of North Korean side. You can see there's some things there, but obviously then you look on the China side, slightly different, and perhaps very much a symbol of the state of the two economies right now. But you know, North Korea's chosen itself to be very reclusive at the moment. So, but you know, you can find YouTube people who've been there. You know, some people I follow, Twitter, have been in North Korea. Not quite as people say, I think. It's but a mystery to most Westerners for sure. Not somewhere high on my list of places to go, but fascinating nonetheless. So obviously a little bit of China information. You know, people may have seen this before, but this is a sort of slightly fascinating picture. We traveled by high-speed rail sort of up here, if the mouse is caught up, from Dalian to Dandong. It's right up in the top right-hand corner here in the green part of this. But this is the development of high-speed rail in China since 2008. You can see there's sort of almost nothing here, and now there's this incredible network. And I don't know how long this journey would have taken before, but it would have been a long time before the high-speed upgrade. So 2 hours 11, I think, is the quickest train from Dalian north to Bandung now. This is just typical of China's development. The most high-speed rail in the world. I think it's now a network that you can add everybody else's high-speed rail together, and it's sort of equivalent to what's in China. Extraordinary. And it's amazing getting around. You can get from Dalian all the way up and down to Beijing in just about 4.5 to 5 hours now by train, whereas that was a overnight sort of sleeper train, which I have taken to Beijing, which is interesting. Still runs, but you know, revolutionized travel, particularly into province. You can get to the capital Shenyang in 2 hours from Dalian now, which would have taken a long time previously. And if you see Chinese New Year and you see some of the footage when we get around there again, the migration of people from maybe working along the richer coastal areas and in the south to their hometowns, wherever they are, these vast amounts of people take these trains. And now some of the journeys you take a whole day off of travel. So when you've got a 7-day holiday, it makes a massive difference to people. So yeah, a little bit of more China information. A little bit of news on one of the stories we looked at last time in coal prices, because obviously coal is still a big part of power generation in China. We've seen a blow off top on the coal prices so far with the intervention from the government to increase supply and control the price slightly. And we saw limit down, limit down, limit down. Some of this is traded in the Dalian Commodities Exchange. You see DCE on here. Some of this is coal prices like coking coal, etc. So we are starting to see some intervention in China, you know, to bring these prices back under control and keep everything stable, which, you know, we talked about. This is what was going to happen. The government will not let things run out of control, which we've seen. And just a sort of general look, this is from China Daily, yesterday. just looking at some of the data which we covered last time. So obviously you can find this on China Daily's website, but you can see the growth. So as we talked about last week, there's nothing saying this is a capitulating economy at all. We've got big positive numbers across the board from industrial output, state-owned enterprise, private shareholding enterprises in the SARs. You've got etc. Manufacturing, high tech, all up. Agriculture's up steadily, grain output, etc. Here's some numbers that surprise people in the West sometimes, but per capita disposable income year over year, 9.7%, average 2-year growth of 5%. Urban households, 8.7% real increase. Rural households up more, 11.2%. We saw from the train village after village after village where the people are farming. And you can see the investment, from when I've traveled maybe 10 years ago in this province in Liaoning, you can see the difference. This is, makes a huge difference to people's lives, these numbers. And you can see retail sales of goods, etc. It's just up and up and up. Investment is up as well, 7%, 14%, 12%. Foreign trade, so 22.7%. You can see 22% exports, 22% imports year on year, huge difference. And the trading partners, so this probably deals with the FUD in the media more than any numbers. Obviously the Asia area, 21%, EU up 20.5%, and the US, so-called trade war, trade up 25% with China. And trade with countries along the Belt and Road, 23.4%. So up. So, this number here is quite amazing, really, because the trade war is then effectively a tax on US companies because you have to pay the tariffs in the US. So, fascinating numbers as ever. So obviously you can find all that on China Daily, but it's just a case of, as I said, don't drain in FUD with people with agendas talking about things, because the numbers will tell you a story, same as we do with trading. Go and look at the numbers, go and look at what the charts are saying, look past some of the headlines. One more interesting piece this week, we've got obviously the conference in the UK on climate change. This is an interesting animation on what's happened over the past 16 years. So this is wind power capacity. You can run this animation and see each year China's investment now in renewables, and you can probably guess where this is going. And it doesn't slow down. And I've shared some of the numbers for 2020 and 2019, where China's like 4 or 5 times most other countries. And they've installed more renewables than everybody else added together, doubled. We can see where this gets to now at the end of 2020. So there's a massive investment going on here to clean up power generation, but there's a lot of work to do. Still got a very large amount of coal here, but again, sometimes there's a lot of FUD out there. What we're looking at with climate change is the rate of change. Who's investing in what, how much difference are we going to make? And China's leadership is saying this is just going to go up, the amount of investment that's going into this now. So I think we're going to see some incredible changes. So there we are. That's a little bit of news to go with everything else. I don't, market hasn't crashed since I was talking about that. So
yeah, no, it's the crypto markets are doing their job of wiping out YOLO leverage longs. I think, like they said, this whole bull run has been fueled a lot by leverage and it's fairly low volume. So Probably a healthy pullback. But yeah, as far as that, the rest of the markets, any updates on Evergrande or the? I guess it's gone kind of quiet. I think people quit flooding that story as much.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some news today,
yesterday or something.
There's been some news today and yesterday in the Chinese press, but really, there's been statements from. I think there was one from the PBOC. Obviously, there's sort of central bank. I think there's another one from one of the sort of like government minister level people just talking about that there is very little risk of any contagion and it will be controlled. There's been asset sales in the news on and off. This, as I said before, I mean, there's form with this with Dalian's biggest company at the time in Wonder Group, which again you can look up from the past, but there's form on how this was handled. So, you know, shareholders, owners took the hit, but China did you know, by many accounts, a pretty good job of making sure that the other creditors and other people, you know, things stayed stable. And as I've said before, I mean, only a third of their debt is to the banks, actually. A lot of it's, I think, just other outstanding liabilities, which would obviously hurt within the construction sector and the other sectors. And they're a bit of a conglomerate as well. Evergrande, it's not just a property company. You know, it was, you know, the stories are, and some of the China talking heads have been saying that the government is going to deleverage it and hold it up as a don't do this type company now, because they've got themselves over leveraged, got themselves in a mess, and now they've got to take the medicine. So that's what I see. It's, as you say, it's been a little bit quieter, but no doubt someone will still have a FUD story ready to crash the market or try to at some point. We see every week has been more like China's crashing whatever stupid stories this week. So
yeah, well, yeah, when it comes to that I did see on the news front, I did see a blip. I haven't had a chance to track it down, but it looks like pretty much most all Bitcoin's hashing power has been moved out of China. I mean, there's still a lot of bad data out there. People that still have charts from like the springtime that are still showing as live charts, but they're from months ago. And there's also people who are aggregating, the pool aggregators that were originally, you know, in China. People are still counting that as hashing in China, when the hashing clearly isn't in China. So, so it looks like, you know, from a cryptocurrency Bitcoin perspective, the hashing has moved out, and there's really not a risk there anymore of the hashing. It's just a matter of, you know, last to the point. I know China kind of did lock down some access to some exchanges last I saw. So it's just a matter of when miners or people who, you know, were invested in Bitcoin before, whenever they find a way to get access back to their accounts, you know, are they, how much dumping is there left to be done there? Because I'm certain that there are people who lost access to their account that are trying to find another way to get back into it. And as soon as they figure out how, you know, to get into their old accounts, they're probably going to dump that pretty quick. But those,
we'll see. I mean, the government has said, and the statements were clear, that there should be no loss of funds for people. They should be able to get at their accounts to get out.
okay.
There was a sort of end of year thing, and what we've seen is the exchanges saying they are no longer going to open accounts for mainland clients, and people who were clearly in the mainland, they were requesting that they close their account.
Right.
Now, whether that means people will go to self-custody or what, I don't know. You know, how they get access to fiat, well, we saw when we covered it before. I mean, the payment gateways were shut off way back, so they would need to go to stable coins or something and have a way of trading that back in some way, whether it's Hong Kong or whatever, I don't know, to get back to fiat, or they'll just hold money offshore. But there was a story today, another one saying, you know, there's still some crypto mining to shut down, was the implication of the story, which, again, it wouldn't surprise me if there was residual things. You know, it's not easy. It's a very, very, very large country to be trying to shut everything down rapidly. You know, some people will probably carry on quietly, but with the power problems, it would be probably a little foolhardy to be still mining right now. because they're going to find you.
Yeah, yeah, so some of these, I was just thinking to myself as we're watching this little sell-off here, some of these these liquidation spikes that could be just an individual that decided to go ahead and just dump all their coins that they had been holding on to if they're in China. They just don't want to mess with it anymore, especially miners. But so there's still going to be this other kind of piece of it, the whole lengthening cycle theory and the block. There's still going to be some selling pressure, I think, as the last of people, but it's getting less and less. Every day, there's less people still holding crypto that are going to want to sell in China. And the ones that, a lot of them, like you said, they're going to find a way to self-custody and just wait it out. And hopefully, China makes it legal again down the road or something. And then they'll re-engage in the market. But there's going to be a lot of people that decide that, what, it's illegal. I don't want to mess with losing my money. And, they're going to be stressed about. I've had it happen to me where I lost access to an account before, and just the stress of like, oh my goodness, I've lost access to whatever it is, right? I have to reset passwords or something. And the stress of that, when you get that account back, you're like, man, I almost want to sell everything and just like go take a vacation. That was stress. Yeah. So I imagine people in China are going to have the same feeling of like,
They would have done much earlier in the year, to be honest, most of them. I mean,
you think so? Yeah. Yeah, through all summer they would have been selling. That's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, we had that capitulation shortly after some of the initial news. So who knows what's connected to what? Because obviously we saw a Wyckoff pattern, which would indicate someone with a lot more money than some Chinese miner was moving the market around with a computer. But who knows? It's
that's true.
So yeah. I was just going to say, obviously, we touched on Twitter before some of my stuff about the Hong Kong downtrend we were in. Obviously, we broke out of that. And we have seen some things like Alibaba, JD, etc. pick back up a little bit. So again, there's a lot of FUD flying around. Some of these stocks were down 50%. So I stepped up a little bit, managed portfolio long term. No, Alibaba's not going anywhere. Hugely profitable company. So we've seen Hong Kong break out of this downtrend, so we'll see what happens next. What's the into resistance here? So there we are, sort of random things to talk about.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we're gonna wrap here probably. So Bitcoin's kind of just we're stabilizing on the bottom side of this little bit of sell-off. Not that big of a deal. The bigger news is that we broke the all-time high and now we're back below it. So use caution at this point. It's but otherwise, thanks, Alan, for all the updates. Thanks for the tour. That would be a super fascinating place to visit. I was asking Alan the other day too. I was pinging him about, hey, so where's from where he's at? It's not too far of a train ride to go see the Great Wall, or some areas of it, the more touristy areas of the Great Wall. So from where you're at, so to the west is the Great Wall. Or some really good areas to see some of the Great Wall anyway. The Great Wall is technically north of you on the map too, it looks like. But to the west is some good spots to see it. And then to the east is North Korea. So two fascinating spots. But I've got some background noise here, so I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, Alan, for your time today. And appreciate the look at the charts and your insights.
Well, thank you, as always, for having me on again. Look forward to, I may be in Shanghai next week, so we may have another different scene change. So there we go.
Well, we look to the tour, the virtual tour.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Who's still here? So
thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys later.